Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast. From still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, old friend from the Sports Source, John Pennington. It's not Saturday, it's not Sunday. We're taping this on a Tuesday morning. John Pennington, good morning. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Chase. Appreciate you reaching out.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. It's been a little bit, and, there's been a lot of Tennesse Vols action here this fall. They are coming off a bye week this week, the last time, hopefully. It will be better than last time's bye week for Tennessee, because I think the SEC has not been good coming out of the bye weeks to this point. I saw something like last week was like coming into last week's games, they were 4-7. In the SEC coming off bye week. So we'll see what that looks like for Tennessee against Kentucky, but it will help not coming off a bye week on the road. But before we get into that, John, my biggest question to you is because I really like turning to you with these kind of big picture Tennessee football questions in terms of I think our brains kind of work the same in terms of just kind of the journalistic aspect of looking at Tennessee football and things like that and trying to figure out what the realistic expectations are for the team, where the team is going, this, that, and the other. And what I wanted to find out from you here is what is the biggest mystery to you still with this 2024 Tennessee Vols football team?
What happened to the passing attack? I know I can diagnose it. I think we all can diagnose it. You've got a young quarterback. Young quarterback who got hit a little too much early, and it rattled him. One thing you can always look for, and if a quarterback's been hit a lot and he's starting to look at the rush, his passes tend to miss high. And as the season bore on, it looked like Nico's passes that were inaccurate seemed to be missing a little bit more and more high each week. So I think that got into him. I think that's perfectly normal. The trick is, can you get past that? Your tackles have been underwhelming. You can blame part of that on injury, perhaps. These guys missed time in training camp and therefore hit the season with not completely up to speed. So you can diagnose it that way. And then the receivers. You don't have a Jalen Hyatt. And it's hard to find a Jalen Hyatt, but you don't have a Cedric Tillman either. You've got some guys who can get open deep on occasion. Nico hasn't hit them. When he has hit them, you've had some drops. So the passing game just hasn't clicked so far this year. And to me, that is the mystery of the season. That's why, if you're hitting one or two extra deep balls a game, we're not talking about this team struggles. We're talking about, man, they're lighting the world on fire. They look fantastic. Add 14 points to every game they've played. It's looking pretty good right now. So it's just getting those deep balls to connect. And I talked about on Sunday, we had somebody on the show, Vince Ferrara, who said this could be a breakout game against Kentucky. And I think it could be, but my fear is the breakout will be for one game only, not, okay, they've unlocked the door and now they're good to go. There are a lot of people thinking that the second half against Alabama was the opening of the door. The same people were telling me that after the second half of the Florida game. Okay, now they got it. I just think they've been so inconsistent to this point. It's hard to imagine them not being pretty inconsistent the rest of the way. You can overcome it, especially if you hit the deep balls in the right game. Hit a couple deep balls in Athens, we're going to be feeling pretty good. In terms of an overall mystery that I can't really diagnose, Tennessee's offense, I thought it was all based on spacing and tempo. I've come to realize this year it's more tempo than anything. The spacing, you take the tempo away, it looks like an average offense. It did last year. It does this year. You haven't been as fast the last 2 years as you were the first 2 years. I realize that it's cooked into the Heupel system that we only go fast after you get that first down. Only go fast after the big play. I don't understand that. If my only advantage in this offense, my biggest advantage is tempo, then I'm going to run it at least a time or two per half as a 2-minute offense. Meaning you don't see a team that's down 7 with 1:50 to go in the NFL. They're marching downfield. Oh, they get a run stuff and a change-up kind of play. So, let's just not go tempo. Let's just go back to the huddle. to me, I would come out there and say, I don't care if we get stuffed. I don't care if it's incomplete. We're racing back out here and we're going to try and catch them off guard. You're not going to snap it as quickly as you would normally. I get that. But you can still hurry it up. I don't understand why they don't do more of that. So to me, that's a pretty good question. We've talked to Ollie Lane on our Saturday show, and I posed that question to him, and he was like, I never really thought about that. It's just first downs and big plays. And there was no real discussion of, the reason we can't do it any other time, or we won't do it any other time, that was just never covered. So to me, there were one or two segments, one or two series a half, I might just come out and say, this is our no huddle, hurry up series, period. I don't care what happens on first and second down. We're hurrying. Let's just see if we can catch them off guard. Because without that, you're just kind of a middling offense.
Well, you also haven't scored in the first half in 3 straight games anyway. So what do you have to lose?
Exactly.
At that point?
And the idea that, you're going to put your defense back out there.
You went for it on the 10-yard line a week ago. Like, what are we talking about?
Exactly. So, to me, and they didn't worry about it when they were putting 40 points on the board.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying do it 60 plays, but if that's your advantage, use it. Even if you don't get the first down right off the bat.
Yeah.
Okay. Second down and 8. We're still going to get the hell up, run back to the line, and snap this thing as fast as we can to try and keep the other defense from dictating to us. This offense is so much better when it's dictating to the defense. They can't get set. They can't give you false looks. They can't walk guys in and out of the box. They don't have time to make Nico sit there and count who's moving and who's coming around. Just he sees what's there and go. But then again, Josh Heupel's the one making about $10 million a year, and I'm not.
Well, and I think you raise a good point. And this was something a Georgia analyst and I were talking about before Nico first started for Tennessee was, and I wonder if you agree with this, John, is that we haven't mentioned his name, but I think Hendon Hooker has to. We talked about Hyatt and Tillman, but Hendon Hooker, one of the most overlooked qualities, and I think Hendon, I just think the world of Hendon, but one of the most overlooked qualities of Hendon that we're seeing with Joe and Nico to this point is he was so comfortable in the pocket and those quick, like he took that one-step drop, and it was a problem against Georgia, but that was it because Jalen Carter was in the backfield. Like they were doubling Jalen Carter, and he's just right there and in Hendon's face. Outside of that, it was never an issue, but it helped because Hendon Hooker was calm. He was a calming presence in the pocket. He could sit there and diagnose stuff and see first read, whatever, and then he's going to take off and run. Nico has that ability to take off and run, but my biggest mystery, I think, to this point in Nico's career here at Tennessee is the great 3 drives we saw from him in the second half last week was a lot of stuff out of structure. And like the ball to Chris Brazzell in the end zone was a great touch ball. Like that was a really great throw for his first touchdown pass in that game. The Dante throw was him off platform, rolling out to his right. That's not really the staple of the Josh Heupel offense. So when people are like, oh, he's breaking through, and I'm like, well, that's not actually a sign of him breaking through. That's like the cherry on top. And that's what the Georgia fan and analyst I was talking to about it was his point was like, does Heupel actually just need the machine quarterback? And is Nico going to be able to be the machine like Hendon was? But then the cherry on top is that Dante throw. But you have to have the machine first. You have to have that comfortability in the pocket and then be the guy who can roll out when things break down against Georgia, Alabama, whoever. But you have to master the first part. And we haven't seen anything close to that to this point.
No, but here's the thing. The fact that he can keep a play alive and make the off-platform throw like a Hendon Hooker could, one, when people look at it, so many people just immediately, he's a bust. He's a bust. I told you he's a bust. It's like he's got the arm, he's got the legs. He can make the off-platform throws. He's got the talent. It's up here. You've just got to train him and don't let him get hit so much early in games. 3 sacks on 3 consecutive plays. I got news for you. That would rattle Peyton Manning. That would rattle Tom Brady. There's a reason defensive ends and defensive tackles are paid so much. Is to hit quarterbacks and rattle them. The trick is the difference between Hendon Hooker and Nico that we're not talking about, that nobody really talks about. Hendon Hooker's second year was his 6th year in college. Yeah. 6. Nico has played 1 year. All right. And he played 1 game of last year. I still consider him a freshman. People quickly, redshirt freshman. Yeah. Well, if you're not on the field, you're not taking snaps under fire. So that doesn't count for me. He's got 8 starts under his belt. Okay. Now it's time to start growing up. But the idea that he's going to look the same after 8 starts that Hendon Hooker looked after, I don't know what, 50 something. because he was at Virginia Tech for years and then came to Tennessee. That's the comparison. You're right. He does need to master that. He does need to look calm, cool, and collected. Some guys are special. Some guys have that. I don't know that he'll have that. I do think, though, in time, if they do a good job of coaching him, I think he'll be fine. One thing they miss that Hendon Hooker had, and I went back and looked, and I would ask everybody to go back and do this. Go look at all their videos on YouTube of all of his touchdown catches from 2022.
Mm.
Count how many of them are just him on deep balls.
Mm.
There's quite a few. There's also a lot that here's a 20-yard pass and he takes it 60. Who do you have on this year's team that's doing that? Who are you seeing that from? He doesn't have that guy who takes the slant 50 yards.
I think Dante qualifies.
You're not hitting him much. I mean, you got 3.
They just need him available, right? Like he's not getting many snaps the last 2 weeks.
I think he has taken a step forward, and we've praised him on my Sunday show, but it's still not to the level of. I mean, if we're going to compare Nico to Hendon Hooker, don't we have to compare Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy, and everyone else to Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman? I just don't see the guy who's catching the short one and taking it long. There's not a lot of yak on this team, from what I've just.
Could be Mike Matthews, but we haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, and Josh Heupel, you got the headline this week that he says we're going to need him. And then you read the story and his quotes are more like, well, we're going to need all our guys. So he doesn't like to play the freshmen, especially freshman receivers, it doesn't seem. With Squirrel White's injury, I know they keep saying that Squirrel White, he's not going to let him take him out. He wants to be out there. Look, if you can't raise your arm to make a catch, you shouldn't be on the field. You're hurting your team. Appreciate the heart. Sit down. Put Matthews in. Put someone else in. But I think all of this is fixable. I'm not to the point. The people are, he's a bust, move on. Gaston Moore. I mean, I think they got their fill of that. But the bust aspect of it's instant gratification. I mean, I just go back to, and Lance Hurd, he's taking a beating. I've given him a beating on our show, mainly because he's getting paid big money now. Sorry, you're a pro. You're going to get a beating. However, look at Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright looked like a bust as a freshman. Then he got better as a sophomore. Then he got better as a junior. Then by the time he left here as a senior, he's a top draft pick in the NFL. I mean, he's a team's first-round draft pick. So Hurd can develop. Nico can develop. People just need to give it time, and that's the one thing nobody wants to spend. It's like, no, now. I want to win now. Why aren't we winning every game 100-0?
Yeah.
Because some of these guys are seniors when some of them are freshmen. And by the time the freshmen are seniors, if they stick around that long, you'll have a new bunch of freshmen. It's a constant chemical mix to find the right components in the right year. And looking back on it, I now wonder if everything wasn't just firing on all cylinders in 2022, and it's going to be hard to get back to that level with that offense. However, the fact you're now winning with defense, you got an offensive guru coach with a special system, and he's willing to say, I don't want to win my defense. There are a lot of those guru guys who go back to what they know in crunch time. Fourth quarter, defensive coaches get conservative. I'll win with my defense. Fourth quarter, the former quarterbacks, they air it out and they hang their defense out to dry. The fact that Josh Heupel is already saying, okay, we need to find a new way to win or a different way to win, I'm impressed by that. I think that's a very positive sign going forward.
Where have you been most right about Tennessee before the year? And where have you been most wrong about Tennessee before this season?
Okay, I'll just throw out most right about the concerns with the offensive line. I mean, there were questions there. I was pleased that they brought so many guys back because it could have been even worse. Imagine if you had 5 newcomers out there.
Well, that might be next year.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think the offensive line turned out to be the concern that we thought it was, or thought it would be. And I'm not giving you any surprises here. The other place where everybody went in holding their nose and holding their breath, both, was the secondary. I was wrong about the secondary. They have made massive improvement. I'm sorry, I didn't watch a lot of Jermod McCoy tape at Oregon State. That may be your first lockdown corner you've had at Tennessee in a decade.
I mean, Ricky, like the best cornerback combination since what? Jabari Greer and who was his? Yeah, and
they're special. I mean, those special guys. Their technique is good. I mean, that's the funny thing. Everybody hates Willie Martinez because anytime a pass is completed, it's the secondary coach's fault. And plus, he has the stank on him from Butch Jones, so it's like, well, we never forgive him.
Yeah,
you talk to people over there. He's a pretty good coach, and when you get some talent, he does a good job with it. But
he's a good recruiter too.
Yeah. So secondary, I think, is where I was most wrong. I'll give you another one. I was concerned about Dylan Sampson. I didn't see him being the workhorse kind of back that Jalen Wright was. And still, I mean, Jalen Wright averaged 10 yards a carry.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers last year and you look at his, not only could he break an 80-yard, just leave everybody in the dust, but how many times last year did he have 10 guys on his back and he's carrying the pile 5,
Yeah.
6, 7 yards? I didn't think, and Sampson hasn't done it to that effect yet, but what he has done is he has reworked his body. I think he might have lost just a touch of speed, not bad, but he's reworked his body to where he can withstand 20 plus carries a game, 26, 27 at times, and be the guy that carries this offense. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was a really good back. I like Dylan Sampson. I was concerned that this was a guy who you would have to do what Heupel does, and that's one guy gets about 17 carries, one guy gets about 10, another guy gets about 8 to 6. Okay. Instead, it's like he's getting 75% of the carries and Deshaun Bishop's getting 25.
Yeah.
I didn't think he'd be able to hold up like that. I didn't think he'd be having the season he's having doing that. If you're asking him to do that, personally, I think Tennessee should open a Heisman campaign for him. I know he's not going to win it, but the guy deserves the recognition. It can help with recruiting. So I was wrong about Dylan Sampson. I knew he'd be good. I just didn't think you could lean on him like this because we hadn't seen it. He changed the way he runs, he changed his build a lot. And he's been able just to slam it in the line, 8 straight carries. I didn't see that last year. Didn't see that coming.
Does that concern you, though? Because I've talked about it with different guys on this program, because one of the things my mind goes to with the Dylan stuff, and I think it's two things to be true. One, it's great that Dylan Sampson's able to carry this load, and he's passed Jalen Wright's entire 2023 carry load. So Jalen Wright, he already passed him after last week. So he's like six carries ahead of Jalen Wright for his entire year last year. And it felt like the offense completely ran through Jalen Wright, to your point, last year. And it was like, oh, Jalen Wright, the Jalen Wright show. And Dylan Sampson's already passed him, and we're just past the halfway point. And he got banged up with the ankle last week or 2 weeks ago. Now you're going up against a dangerous front seven. I mean, Kentucky's got problems. They don't have problems on the front seven. He's going to get banged up again. And I worry because Cam Seldon's hyped up so much, and I understand the injury stuff with him this offseason. Deshaun Bishop, he averaged 7 yards to carry in the last game. Like, he's shown you enough. I understand the issues in pass pro.
He showed me worse than I thought.
Yeah, 100%. But 2016 Auburn did this, where they rode Kerryon Johnson into the ground to beat Georgia and Alabama to only get Georgia again the SEC title game, and he was banged up, and it cost him the SEC title game, like a potential national championship.
Yeah.
I worry down the stretch here, and it's something that I'm monitoring in the second half of this season. And I think the Vol fans who are like, you got to just build, like, keep doing run defense and running the football. And I'm like, I don't think that's a recipe for making it through and getting to 10-2, 11-1, whatever the case may be. Because the worst case scenario is Sampson gets you there, and then Sampson is so banged up you can't go through him, and what got you there isn't available, and then you lose anyway because the guy. It's just, I don't know. It's
to me, it seems like, right now it seems to be their only choice. They're going to continue to take deep shots, and again, if you can connect on just a couple of those games, it changes the game. 2 touchdowns. Think about it. So you keep trying to throw those things out there, but I just don't see anything changing. The only thing you could hope to change would be that Seldon does get healthy and come on to be the guy that I thought he looked like. Now, I tell myself every year, don't get caught up in a spring game. And I'm not watching, he ran for 120 yards. That's not the kind of stuff I'm talking about in a spring game. I just looked at Cam Seldon. I said, oof, that guy's built like Jalen Hurd, and he's got speed. That's a pretty good looking back.
He's got the exact same measurables as Princeton fan. Same height, same weight.
That's amazing. Now, and but he hasn't put it together on the field. Injuries, whatever. So that would be a huge help because, I agree. If you keep running him like this, I don't know that you can. You basically just passed the halfway point. You got 7 games down. You got 5 more to go. Then you got bowl game playoffs, as you talk about. So it is going to be hard for him to. He's going to have him carry it constantly. So you've got to get a third back into the rotation. I did a radio show yesterday and said this very same thing. You need to get back to where it is one guy gets, 60, 65%. Somebody else, I'm going to screw up the math here, but you get the gist. Yeah. It's more of a 3-back spin as opposed to one main guy and the change of pace guy. Yeah. You need 2 guys. Drop Dylan Sampson's carries down to 17, 18 a game compared to, what was it last week? 26, 27?
26, I think, last week.
that to me, that would be a lot better recipe for success if you can do it. But that depends,
especially in the first half. Like, you're not scoring anyway. Like that's he's second half Dylan. Like, save him for the second half.
Well, but part of the problem there is he second half Dylan because he's worn people down in first half.
Yeah, true.
You get some of that, the cumulative effect of them just hammering him into them.
Cam Seldon, though, his size. I don't want to tackle Cam Seldon.
Yeah, it's up to Cam Seldon at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was a believer in Cam Seldon, including me, and haven't seen it. So at some point, maybe it's just injuries. Maybe, I mean,
the red shirt's burned, so he's got it. Like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, in the bowl game last year, he looked good. He didn't look great. He didn't look as good as I thought he would look. So he's got to step up.
There you go. John Pennington, what can the good folks check out from you over at the Sports Source everywhere else this week?
Yeah, well, Saturday at 11 a.m., we'll be doing a preview on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. That's channel 6, 11 a.m., and on my YouTube page and on sportsource.tv. We'll be up there at 11 a.m. That's Kevin Simon, Ollie Lane, and literally 13 other people. It's 16 people. Nobody's done anything like this in Knoxville sports history. So 16 people breaking down the Kentucky game, at least 15. We got one guy who might be on the shelf due to illness, but at least 15. And we also end the show each week with score predictions from everyone. So it's back to back to back. Everybody in town who got a voice gives you their prediction for the game. And then Sunday, we'll break down the game. We'll give you our post-game coverage of Kentucky, Tennessee. That'll be 11 a.m. On WATE 6 as well. That's a 90-minute show as opposed to the hour on Saturday. And then we'll put it up on YouTube that afternoon for folks who are outside the market. So we got a busy weekend, every weekend during football season.
I love it. Go subscribe, Sports Source on YouTube. Watch it on WATE on Saturday and Sunday all weekend long. John, keep up the great work, my friend, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Thank you, Chase. Take care.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.